spaces at BTC. My name is Trisha Pa, and I'm a rising Year 2 student from NUS Law. We are also joined by a special guest from That.Legal to discuss balancing work and life. BTC Spaces at BTC is thankful to That.Legal for sponsoring this video. Perhaps we can start by a short self-introduction.
Sure. Hello, I'm Jonathan Foong, Managing Director of That.Legal LLC, a boutique law firm specializing in intellectual property.
Hi, my name is Teng. I'm the Executive Director at That.Legal LLC. I've been specializing in intellectual property for over 10 years, starting with IP litigation, and now we handle protection, commercialization, as well as dispute resolution of intellectual property matters.
It's so nice to meet you. So I think one thing I'm really curious about, what have you been doing recently in your spare time? And also, I guess, any hobbies that you like to share with us?
So I know it sounds like a really old man thing to do, but lately what I have been doing is I've been playing golf. Golf helps me build a discipline where I train actually for about 1 to 1.5 hours a day, 4 times a week. And I practice. It takes my mind off work. It takes myself away from my mobile devices or my computer devices. It gives me a time where my brain can space out. It's actually a lot more physical if you play at a decent level than a lot of people think it is. So there's quite a serious load on the body as well, to which I actually spend some time also to recover from as well. So 4 times a week is what I spend playing golf, and it's not like I go out to play on the golf course and spend 7 to 8 hours in one session. What I do is just short 1.5 hour training sessions where I build the discipline to repeat, to continue the endeavor that I set myself up to do, and I think the whole idea, other than finding a way to take me away from the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, is also to train myself to be able to handle long-term goals, because it's not something that it's not a skill that you can build overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. And that's the same thing about your legal career as well. It's not something that you can build overnight. It's something that where little drops of work over time make the ocean.
One of my more unique hobbies would be airplane spotting and all things commercial aviation, such as aircraft, meals and seats on aircraft. I do follow that on a regular basis. My other hobbies include reading, music, food and drink, and travel. And I feel that hobbies are useful because it forces you to get out of your normal work routine and helps you declutter your mind. And also that helps with your mental health too. So it's good to have hobbies, and of course with physical exercise it helps you improve your health level, which in turn be useful for productivity at work.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I completely understand what you mean by relating our hobbies to our work and mental health. And I think this question would be on a lot of our minds. Do you get sufficient sleep at night when you're working, especially during your busy peak periods?
Well, I try to get between 7 to 8 hours sleep, even during busy periods. I feel that sleep is very important, and right now I'm trying to calibrate my sleep to start before midnight so that I can have a full 7 to 8 hours in order to be productive in the mornings. But yes, I think sleep is very important, and even though you're busy, there has to be some kind of downtime in order to maintain your productivity at work.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean by having sleep and downtime to be one of my priorities. I think time management is super important for us students as well as for people practicing like you. So, do you have any advice on how you manage your time so that you can incorporate more downtimes?
To be honest, it's going to be really, really difficult to manage your time as a junior associate. Because when you first start out, you start out at the bottom. And generally speaking, you will be at your partner's beck and call if you want to be the rockstar associate that everybody is yearning to be, right? I think it's important to set aside some time for rest. It's important to set aside some time for yourself to do the things that you really love. I think when you're young, when I was young, one of the things that I did a lot was to travel the world, and because I have the energy, the flexibility that you have now to enjoy life that way. For example, my friends and I, we did backpacking in Vietnam. We went from city to city, sleeping on budget buses and all that kind of thing, and budget accommodation. That's something that, if you ask me whether I can do now at this age, the answer is clearly no. Not because I'm too spoiled now, but because I have a family to take care of, and it's just, it's not possible. There are some things that are impossible to do at a later stage. So if that is the thing for you, then I would suggest that you make it what we call at That.Legal a non-negotiable. So the employees at our firm are all encouraged to declare for themselves what are the things that are non-negotiable to them. For me now it's golf, right? But for everybody it's a bit different. It is what you, like I mentioned just now, choose to do in this world. What makes you happy? What sparks joy for you? And if you block time for that, and if amongst your work or even your hard work you have time to do the things that you really want to do, then I think you can achieve a sense of balance in this life.
Well, I usually put it in my schedule, and normally I will be quite intentional to actually go through with it, because it's so easy when you're practicing or studying to not bother and just veg in your chair and not do what you're supposed to do for your downtime. I think it's sometimes you've got to be pretty committed to these downtimes, which is a lot to do. And I believe that's an important part of how you develop more discipline in obtaining the downtime you need.
I think it's very important to create habits so that we can become more disciplined. But I think something that I struggle a lot with, I'm sure you have trainees who do this too, is that we expect a lot of ourselves, even from the start. So I have a tendency of always being productive, and I feel like my responsive tendency tends to change when it comes from different periods of time. So I guess what I would like to ask you is, how do you respond to the always being productive tendency?
I think you're right? It's inevitable in legal practice that there will be time pressure. The more any associate works, the more productivity they generate, the more billings they generate, the better they are going to perform. So we're in a business where the culture is selling time, but it's a limited resource. Time is, everybody only has 24 hours a day. Ideally, we should sleep somewhere between 6 to 8 hours a day. Ideally, we have some mental health breaks, like the way I play golf, or my own mental health break. And then how many hours do you have left to work? I think the mark of any successful lawyer is time management. There will be no lawyer that is successful that does not have a very solid time management framework. How I manage my time to make sure that I have time for the non-negotiables in my life is I block the non-negotiables in my calendar first, instead of finding spare time for the non-negotiables. So I do it in the reverse. I find time for the things that are not negotiable in my calendar, in my framework. And then after that, then I put in sleep. And then I put in the hours that I block for work. Then I count the number of hours that I have for work. And then, only on that basis, do I set my expectations of how much I intend to make. Because how much productivity you expend is somewhat correlated to how much you should expect to make.
I think there are different ways of looking at productivity. So from a client-facing perspective, I used to be the guy who would always turn an email around immediately, day or night, and I developed a good reputation for that. However, clients began to expect me to do it all the time, and that put a lot of stress on me to continue in this manner. So now what I do is I will respond within a 24-hour to 48-hour time frame, and I feel that it's still a reasonable time frame to respond to the client without sacrificing productivity, and it also takes away the stress of me having to quickly respond immediately to their emails.
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from, because sometimes when I do things at a certain level of standard, I feel like I need to reciprocate that standard every single time. And I think for me especially, a lot of it tends to come from a lot of peer pressure, because feeling productive is a lot of times linked to that competitive culture. So the question I would like to ask you is, what are your thoughts on the competitive culture that I guess young lawyers as well as students have, and what are your advice to young lawyers on how we can deal with that?
Sometimes there might be situations that call for it where work needs to be done past 6 o'clock as well. If you're that guy that after 6 p.m. you're completely unavailable, then inevitably you lose out to the guy that is always available unless he's asleep or incapacitated, which is not really the life that we want to live. Yet, that is the case in some situations. For example, if there's an urgent injunction that needs to be done by tomorrow morning, I've had situations where I worked from dinner time to midnight, filed the submissions before midnight, and then gone to argue the next morning. And sometimes, especially when you're young, you can wear it like a badge of honor that you've been there, you've done that, and that's some of the exigencies of maybe litigation practice that happens from time to time. It's not usually an everyday affair. I think if it's an everyday affair, then there's some problem with the framework. But if your question is how students and junior associates can manage their time in the midst of all these pressures being put on them, then I think the answer really lies with yourself. Everybody is different and unique in their own way, and it's up to you how you want to run this race for yourself called life. It is up to you how you want to design your life. Actions have consequences, but that's life, right? For example, if you choose to work 12 hours a day, right? Like I did when I first started practice, 12 or more hours a day, then you might get somewhere faster than the person who works 6 hours a day, right? But at the end of the day, it's a choice, right? Like, what do we choose to do in this life? Do we choose to balance things out? Do we choose to over tilt and commit a bit more to work for a short period of time? Maybe that short period of time that I'm talking about could be 3 years, maybe it could be 6 years. It's what we choose to do with our time that determines what we achieve at the end of the day. So I think on the matter of time management and how you design your calendar, I know how I've designed mine, but that's only after graduating for more than 10 years. But if you want to design your calendar in a way that, I think you should design it in a way that works for you, knowing who you are yourself, and what you want for yourself in the next 3 years or 5 years. Come up with a plan of how much time you intend to spend on the different things in your life that make you happy, and perhaps you can narrow the gap between expectation and reality.
I think the competition will always be there. It will be excruciating and overwhelming at times. But remember always to love yourself. Remind yourself that you are enough. You should take sufficient rest, and also to self-care by meditation, breathing exercises during work periods, and also have sufficient sleep. And remind yourself also that the storm will always run out of rain eventually, and the season will pass. That is how you get through your difficult periods.
I definitely resonated with that. I think sometimes it's really hard to have a positive mindset, but it always helps the people around me encourage that culture. So this specific question comes from our guest at That.Legal, and that would be, how do you think your firm has incorporated a positive work-life balance and has encouraged that among your employees?
So at That.Legal, we have this framework where we ask our employees to declare to us what are the things that they really love to do in this world. So for this, we call non-negotiables or play. Right? And these are the things that we ask our employees to put into their calendar first. So for example, we have some young mothers with us. Their non-negotiables are to be able to take care of their children. Some of them need to drop off their kids in school in the morning or send them to infant care, right? And that's what we ask them to block their calendar with first. The reason why we ask them to block their calendar is so that everybody else in the firm can see that that is on their calendar, so that the others, when we work together, don't interfere with their non-negotiables. They are focused on their non-negotiables. For me, I spend my lunch hours training golf, not just playing golf, because that's what I have declared as one of my non-negotiables, and so they know not to disturb me during this time. Everybody is different, and everybody decides what their non-negotiables are. And when they know, I think when our employees know that they have the time to spend on their non-negotiables, then they are able to be happy spending time taking care of the firm's interests as well.
In short, our firm policy is for our staff to go back if there is no further work that needs to be completed for that day. We do not require our staff to stay late or work long hours in order to show commitment to the firm.
Do you feel like you have any other final remarks or advice to young lawyers and students like me?
What I would like to say is love yourself, keep strong, and stay the course.
If I have to sum it up all in perhaps 1 or 2 sentences, I'd say young lawyers should set and manage your expectations. Be deliberate about how you're designing your life, and that, I think, is the easiest way to narrow the gap between expectations and reality.
Thank you so much for your sincere comments as well as your insightful advice for all the young lawyers out there. Thank you again for That.Legal for sponsoring the Spaces at BTC video, and thank you to our guests Mark and Jonathan for coming down here and giving us such solid, great advice.